Well, this is your boy, Mr. Downtown Ray Mellon, and you're listening to the Entertainment Report for Thursday, November 20th, 2014, delivering some of the major stories and trends going on in the world of entertainment and beyond. You can follow the show on Facebook or on Twitter, facebook.com/The Entertainment Report with Ray Mello, that's RayMelo, or on Twitter at The Enter Report. You can also listen to the show anytime you want on iHeartRadio. Just search for The Entertainment Report, and it will take you to the page. Director Mike Nichols, who made such films as The Graduate, which earned him a Best Director Oscar, and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, has died. He was 83. He was married to ABC News veteran Diane Sawyer and was hugely successful on Broadway as well. Notably, he was one of the only a dozen people to have won at least one Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony Award. James Goldstone, president of ABC News, shared the news of his death with his staff in a note on Thursday morning. The U.S. director, who was born in Germany under the name Michael Igor Pichowski, died of cardiac arrest, according to ABC News representative. Goldstone's note read, "I'm writing with the very sad news that Diane's husband, the incomparable Mike Nichols, passed away suddenly on Wednesday evening." He also added, in a triumphant career that spanned over 6 decades, Mike created some of the most iconic works of American film, television, and theater, an astonishing cast ranging from The Graduate, Working Girl, and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf to Closer, Charlie Wilson's War, Annie, Spamalot, The Birdcage, and Angels in America, Goldstone wrote. He also added he was a true visionary, winning the highest honors in the arts for his work as a director, writer, producer, and comic, and was only a tiny few to win the EGOT, an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. The family will hold some private service this week, with the memorial to be held later. In 1968, Nichols won the directing Oscar for The Graduate, followed in 1977 by the Tony for Best Musical for Annie. He also captured Best Director Tony honors for Neil Simon's The Prisoner of Second Avenue in 1972, Tom Stoppard's The Real Thing in 1984, and Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman in 2012, and a Best Musical Direction for Tony for Monty Python's inspired Spamalot in 2005. One of his Emmy wins came in 2001 for HBO's Wit in the Outstanding TV Movie category. In addition to a Best Director Golden Globe honor for Graduate and a couple of DGA and PGA awards, he also won Best BAFTA honors for Graduate and Virginia Woolf, and a Best Direction BAFTA for The Graduate. He received the AFI's Lifetime Achievement Award in 2010. Goldstone wrote, "No one was more passionate about his craft than Mike. He had recently been immersed in a new project for HBO to adapt Master Class, Terrence McNally's Tony Award-winning play about opera legend Maria Callas. The project reunited him with Meryl Streep, one of his most frequent collaborators. She once said of him, 'No explanation of our world would be complete, and no account or image of it so rich if we didn't have you,' in hailing him as one of the essential artists of our time." Playwright Tom Stoppard said, "He is a giver. He's good at comfort and joy. He's good at improvising the shining hour and brightening the dark one. And of course, he's superlative fun. To me, he is the best of America." Nichols and his family fled Nazi Germany and came to the U.S. when he was 7. He went to school in New York and studied at the University of Chicago. He initially focused on medicine, but ended up in the comedy group Playwrights Theater, which would become the improvisational group The Compass Players, a precursor to Chicago's Second City. By 1958, Nichols and fellow Compass player Elaine May were performing in New York clubs like the Village Vanguard on television's The Steve Allen Show. The height of their success came with An Evening with Mike Nichols and Elaine May, a 1960 Broadway hit directed by Arthur Penn, and the album of the show won a Grammy for Best Comedy Performance. The Graduate, which earned 7 Oscar nominations in all, was based on Charles Webb's 1963 novel of the same name. The protagonist, Benjamin Braddock, is a wasp from Boston. Nichols just off directing Robert Redford and Elizabeth Ashley on Broadway in Simon's Barefoot in the Park. He also directed the original production of Simon's The Odd Couple, though thought that Dustin should handle the lead. The actor wasn't sure. He said in a 2012 documentary about casting director Marion Daugherty, "I said to Nichols, I don't think I am right for the role. The character in the book is kind of an Anglo-Saxon, tall, slender, good-looking type." And he said, "And you're Jewish." I said, "That's right, short and Jewish." And he said, "Well, inside Benjamin Braddock is short and Jewish." Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which starred Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, was his second feature and earned an Oscar nomination for it. His other Academy Award directing knobs came from Silkwood in 1983 and Working Girl in 1988, and he earned a Best Picture nod for co-producing 1993's The Remains of the Day. Nichols' outstanding body of work also includes Catch-22 in 1970, Carnal Knowledge in 1971, The Day of the Dolphin 1973, The Fortune 1975, Harper 1986, Postcards from the Edge 1990, Primary Colors 1998, and What Planet Are You From 2000. He also directed the acclaimed 2003 HBO miniseries adaptation of Tony Kushner's Angels in America, for which he won 2 Emmys. The Hollywood Reporter chief film critic Tom McCarthy wrote in 2012, "It's always worth remembering that Nichols, for all his modernity and urban cool, is the last of the pre-World War II German-speaking immigrants to come to work in the American film industry, having escaped in the nick of time in April 1939. In this sense, as well as for his flair with insinuating humor and abiding interest in what goes on behind closed doors, he is the last filmmaker in the line of most illustriously defined by Ernest Lubitsch and Billy Wilder. For Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Nichols hired an inexperienced Haskell Wexler to do the cinematography for the adaptation of Edward Abbey's dark stage masterpiece. At one point, Wexler recalled in an interview, Nichols told him, "I think it's too dark." "So I did increase fill light a little bit," Wexler said, who won an Oscar for his work on the drama. "After the film, Mike Nichols gave me a photograph in this silver frame, but there was nothing in the photograph. The photograph was all black in this silver frame, and he wrote, 'It's too dark, Haskell.'" Goldstone said Mike had a sparkling wit and a brilliant mind. Beloved by so many in film, television, and Broadway, there was no greater joy in his life than his family, and of course our own Diane Sawyer. A true and beautiful love story. Mike and Diane were married for 26 years. He leaves behind 3 children, Daisy, Max, and Jenny, and 4 wonderful grandchildren. Nichols will be honored by the Broadway community on Friday night. The marquees of Broadway's theater will be dimmed in his memory for 1 minute on Friday night at 7:45 p.m. Nichols won more Tony Awards for Best Direction of a Play than any other individual, taking home trophies for Barefoot in the Park, 1964, Love and the Odd Couple, 1965, Plaza Suite, 1968, The Prisoner of the Second Avenue, 1972, The Real Thing, 1984, and Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman in 2012. He also won a Tony in 2005 for directing the musical Monty Python's Spamalot and for producing Annie in 1977 and The Real Thing under the company he founded, Icarus Productions. Some of Hollywood's biggest stars remember the legendary director who died on Wednesday night. Julia Roberts called Nichols, with whom she worked on Charlie Wilson's War and Closer, a hero and her most cherished friend. There are so few heroes in our world, so impeccable craftsmen, few people who personify unconditional love and friendship. Mike Nichols was like no other. In every way he was remarkable and amazing. His musing were like pearls. His jokes were timeless and perfectly placed in his stories, detailed and wholly entertaining. His warm embrace was where you wanted to live forever. He savored life and friends and French macarons. He always told the truth. He loved Diane utterly, immeasurably, magically. He was my most cherished friend. Steven Spielberg remembered Nichols in a statement, writing, "Mike was a friend, a muse, a mentor, one of America's all-time great film and stage directors, and one of the most generous people I've ever known. For me, The Graduate was life-altering, both in as an experience at the movie theaters as well as a master class about how to stage a scene. Mike had a brilliant cinematic eye and uncanny hearing for keeping scenes ironic and real. Actors never gave him less than their personal best, and then Mike would get from them even more. And in a room full of people, Mike was always the center of gravity. This is a Semitic loss." Meryl Streep, who starred in several of Nichols' productions, including Silkwood and Angels in America, called him an inspiration and a joy, a director who cried when he laughed, a friend without whom, well, we can't imagine our world, an indelible, irreplaceable man. Tom Hanks, who played the lead role in Charlie Wilson's War, said in a statement, "Forward, we must always move forward, otherwise what will become of us," said Mike Nichols, who changed the lives of those who knew him, who loved him, who will miss him so. Nathan Lane, who starred in Nichols' The Birdcage, added, "Along with Elaine May, Mike Nichols changed the face of comedy. He was an irreplaceable and loving genius who also changed my life. My heartfelt condolences to Diane and his family." Natalie Portman, who starred Nichols' 2004 Oscar contender Closer, said of the director in a statement, "There's nothing good enough I can write that would do Mike justice. He was the one who had the best words, the right hug for hard times, the funny comments to diffuse your pain. He saved me again and again. He was the best way to be a person and an artist, and the most fun. I send my deepest love to Diane, Jenny, Max, Daisy, and their children who filled his days with light." John Goodman, who was directed by Nichols in What Planet Are You From and the off-Broadway production of The Seagull, said, "He made me feel as though I were a full partner or co-conspirator in finding clues to solve the puzzle, like a really slowed Dr. Watson. It's hard to imagine a world without him." Cynthia Nixon, who was directed on the stage by Nichols in productions including The Real Thing in 1984, she currently stars in The Revival, and Hurly Burly. She wrote, "As an actor, there was no greater joy and opportunity and imprimatur than being hired by Mike Nichols, except being hired by him again." Bob Newhart also remembered the director. "I was shocked to learn of Mike's passing. He had so much more to give. One of the great honors of my career was being chosen by Mike to play Major in Catch-22. Al Pacino remembered his Angels in America director while at a New York City luncheon for The Humbling, held just hours after he heard the news. "I love Mike. I worked with him, and he was a friend," he told The Hollywood Reporter. Director Barry Levinson added, "His work is exceptional. He's one of these guys that had an impact as a director in the business. He was a man that could handle comedy and drama in an effortless fashion, and he took some risk." Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Art Garfunkel, who appeared in Catch-22 and Carnal Knowledge and contributed to the Graduate soundtrack as half of Simon and Garfunkel, told Billboard, "He was the most sparkling man among us. Life will be different for us now. Earth will be a little duller. Mike Nichols is not alive. To act for him on camera was to glide on a liquid film of intelligence." Sam Menendez also took the time to remember Nichols as a friend and someone he looked up to. "Mike's genius on stage and on screen, with actors, writers, and collaborators, was beyond question. He was a giant, but as many others like myself can testify, he also had a genius for friendship." Mendes said in the statement, "He went out of his way to guide and mentor many young directors who offered little in return except idolatry. I was one of those lucky enough to be counted among his friends, and of course he was my idol." Tony Kirshner, who wrote Angels of America, the HBO adaptation of which Nichols directed, said, "Mike brought a consummated understanding of theatricity to his film, a great filmmaker's grasp of narrative to his stage work, and to both he brought his rigorous intelligence, emotional courage, discipline, taste, and infinite wit, a classicist, an engaged and Protean artist, a truly original, utterly remarkable mensch of a man. Mike inspired me, challenged me, brought me much joy, and when I needed it, real comfort. He was a magnificent friend. I loved him very much." But the biggest tribute came from Whoopi Goldberg, and she was so overcome by emotion that her View co-host had to deliver the news of his death on Thursday's edition of ABC's The View. Goldberg was discovered by Nichols and considered the director to be her mentor. As Nicole Wallace, Rosie O'Donnell, and Rosie Perez recalled Nichols' contribution to film and Broadway, Goldberg appeared to be crying. She was seen putting her hands over her face and seemed to be shaking. She was sobbing so hard. Perez and Wallace tried to console her. O'Donnell explained that Nichols saw Goldberg perform as a downtown street artist and told her, "You got something, kid." Then they put a show together. Nichols gave her the entire beginning of her career and recognized her brilliance before anyone else, O'Donnell said. The show then aired a clip from a January 2012 episode of The View about mentors in which Goldberg talks to mentor Nichols. In the clip, Nichols explained more about how he discovered her and Goldberg, recalling having lunch with Nichols, Paul Simon, Carl Reiner, and Steve Martin, with whom Nichols had just identified as Carl, Paul, and Steve. Goldberg said, she said, "I came to you and said, what the hell's going on? Why is my career in such a weird place?" And you'll say, "Because that's what our business is. You will always have weird places, and every time I talk to you about it, I get it. I get it more. It calms me down," Goldberg said of her conversations with Nichols. In some other news, Bill Cosby's attorney is responding to a number of new accusations against the comedian. Attorney Marty Singer released a lengthy statement regarding Linda Joy Traits, who alleges Cosby assaulted her 4 decades ago. She wrote in her Facebook post this week, "He drove out of the beach, opened a briefcase filled with assorted drugs, and kept offering me pills. The singer calls his account a fabrication. Ms. Price is the latest example of people coming out of the woodworks with unsubstantial and fabricated stories about my client, Singer said. In a statement to the media, he includes records showing Trace has a criminal record that includes identity theft, drug possession, and fraud. Singer also released a statement regarding claims from Carla Ferrigno, wife and manager of Lou Ferrigno, who says Cosby attempted to force her on her at a party in 1967. This continuation of patterns of attack on Mr. Cosby has entered the realm of the ridiculous, with a purported forceful kiss at a party in 1967, nearly 50 years ago, being treated as a current news story and grossly mischaracterized as a sexual assault. This is utter nonsense. He goes on to say people coming out of nowhere with this sort of inane yarn is what happens in a media-driven feeding frenzy. Singer also addresses allegations from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest actress Louisa Moritz, who made the claim Thursday that Cosby forced her to perform oral sex backstage at the Tonight Show in 1971. Singer said, "We've reached the point of absurdity. The stories are getting more ridiculous. I think people are trying to come up with these wild stories in order to justify why they have waited 40 to 50 years to disclose these ridiculous accusations." He called into question her credibility because Moritz, a trained lawyer, has been ordered not to practice by the California State Bar. TMZ reported that the reason she was disciplined was she failed to report quarterly reports of some kind. Moritz is just one of a number of women who have come forward in recent weeks with claims Cosby sexually assaulted them in the past. Cosby has maintained his innocence via statements from his reps and attorneys. The controversy has led NBC to drop the planned series with the comedian, and Netflix postponed a comedy special. TV Land has stopped airing repeats of The Cosby Show as well. Fox has set the return for the sixth and final season of Glee. The Ryan Murphy, Brad Falchuk Fox musical will return Friday, January 9th with a 2-hour premiere starting at 8 p.m. before moving to its standard home on Fridays at 9 p.m. January 16th. The series will air its final season over 11 weeks and conclude with a 2-hour series finale on March 20th. Glee will take over the slot that was originally occupied by big swing reality entry Utopia. Repeats of MasterChef Junior has been airing since the series was canceled. Fox officially trimmed the sixth and final season episode count to 13 after the global hit repeatedly hit series lows in its fifth season, with ratings down considerably for those in its early heyday. The move came as a little surprise after Glee, one of the lowest rating script series to earn an additional season renewal after Fox's 2-season pickup a year ago was left off the network's fall schedule. Murphy told reporters in April that the final season would feature a time jump and focus more on the original cast members, shifting the focus from its previous relocated home in New York. Murphy said the final season is really its own story and its own location, and while the New York stuff will be alive, the final season is not New York centric at all. It really will be a lovely fitting season that dwells on the original people that were on the show and what happens to them and how they get back. That really is the last season. We'll revisit some of the new kids that came and went. There's a return of the Jane Matt characters in a big way. It's really interesting, a very sweet, satisfying ending to the story. CBS is clearing the decks for its new comedies. The Turner-owned network has canceled comedy Sullivan Son after a 3-season run, the Hollywood Reporter has learned. Created by Steve Byrne and showrunner Rob Long, the comedy was a Cheers-like series that centered on a working-class Pittsburgh neighborhood. Byrne and Dan Laura started. Season 3 averaged 1.6 million total viewers and a 0.6 rating in the key adult under 50 demographics, off more than 20% in both metrics year over year. The news comes months after TBS canceled comedy Men at Work after 3 seasons. Both Men and Sullivan helped to launch TBS into original scripted landscape. The network added ABC's Cougar Town and more recently American Dad to its roster, as well as Bill Lawrence's Ground Floor. The latter has already been renewed for a second season on the network, where it will be joined by upcoming comedies including Steve Carell's Tribeca, Greg Mallon's Your Family or Mine, and Dave Cohen and Max Muchnick's Buzzy. TBS's overhaul comes as former Fox topper Kevin Riley is looking to make his mark on the Turner networks with noisier fare to cut through the increasingly competitive scripted landscape. On the drama side, TNT recently axed Dallas, Franklin, and Bash Perception after multiple season runs. Since the success of the Guardians of the Galaxy, actor Chris Pratt has fielded numerous offers with hefty paydays. Sony's Uncharted and Universal's The Mummy among those he turned down, but something has caught his eye: Universal's adaptation of the Image Comics' Cowboy Ninja Viking. It's early in the process, but Pratt is circling the action project and is looking to attach himself. However, there are a few things that would need to be ironed out on top of his contract. Take, for example, the fact that there's no director on board, something that could impact his involvement ultimately. Collider broke the news earlier this week with Pratt taking to Twitter to affirm. Craig Mason, who wrote Identity Theft and The Hangover 2, wrote most of the recent draft of the screenplay, which was originally written by Zombieland's writers Paul Wernick and Everett David Reese. Film 360's Guyman Cassidy and Ben Faulkner are producing with Mark Gordon for the Mark Gordon Company. Brian Zurif is executive producing. From Image Comics' own description, Cowboy Ninja Viking is the creation of Dr. Sebastian Gilslane, a psychotherapist who recruits multiple personality disorder patients to produce a unit of counterintelligence agents called triplets. When they become out of control assassins, that's when the deadliest triplet of them all, Cowboy Ninja Viking, is calling to take down his old brethren. Cher has canceled the rest of her Dress to Kill concert tour while she recovers from an infection, her publicist announced in a statement on Thursday. The 68-year-old singer and performer completed 49 dates since her tour began in March before taking a scheduled break in July. Shortly before returning in September, she was struck by an infection that affected kidney functions. Cher's doctors have recommended she take more time to rest for a complete recovery, the statement said. Cher said in the statement, "I am totally devastated. Nothing like this has ever happened to me. I cannot apologize enough to all the fans who bought tickets. I'm so proud of this show. It's my best ever. I sincerely hope that we can come back again next year and finish what we started." The affected show was scheduled through February 2nd in 22 cities, including Washington, D.C., New York City, Boston, Toronto, and Chicago. Ticket holders can receive refunds for their point of purchase. And finally, SiriusXM's losing streak in court over the issue of pre-1972 sound recordings continues on Thursday, with a federal judge denying the Statcaster's motion to certify an interlocutory appeal. In the past couple of months, facing the owners of older music, SiriusXM has lost again and lost thrice over the issue of whether California and New York state laws protect the exclusive right to publicly perform pre-72 sound recordings. In the first battle against Flo and Ed of the Turtles, SiriusXM wanted to appeal the decision before moving ahead to the next stage of litigation, including class certification and damages liability. But U.S. District Judge Philip Gutierrez won't make it easy. His early decision granting summary judgment to the plaintiffs was grounded upon a California law that was enacted in 1982 that was meant to address pre-1972 music before sound recordings began failing under federal law. The state statute was silent on the issue of public performance, and despite decades of interterrestrial broadcasters and others assuming a right to broadcast music like Bob Dylan's hits from the 1960s, the judge decided that the law included performance rights for the benefit of copyright owners rather than excluding them. On Thursday, the judge issued a new ruling on the issue of whether SiriusXM could take up an immediate appeal. He writes, "While the court is largely unpersuaded and sometimes baffled by SiriusXM's repetitive or off-point theories about how reasonable jurists might read an unwritten exclusion into 982A2, the court will not analyze the potential grounds for difference of opinion because the certification of this order suffers from an even more basic deficiency. At this stage in the litigation, under the operative scheduling order governing the case, certification of the order for immediate appeal would delay rather than materially advance the termination of the litigation. Therefore, the court denies the motion." And that is your entertainment report for Thursday, November 20th, 2014. I'm your host, Mr. Dan Antenna Ray Mello. I'll be back tomorrow to wrap the week up, delivering some of the major stories and trends going on in the world of entertainment and beyond. You can follow the show on Facebook or on Twitter, facebook.com/The Entertainment Report with Ray Mello. That's RAYMELO. Or on Twitter @The Enter Report. You can listen to this episode or any previous episodes of The Entertainment Report on iHeartRadio. Just search for The Entertainment Report and it will take you to our page. Have a great day, everybody. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.